She believes the barking dog is just a loud, untrained mutt causing disruption. Sun bathed the sleepy suburban street in a soft golden glow, but Karen was already fuming before her first cup of coffee. The mug in her hand trembled slightly as she glared out the kitchen window, the once peaceful scene now tainted by the sight of that mutt, as she liked to call him, Michael's dog, Rex. His deep, resonant bark echoed from the backyard, cutting through the air like a chainsaw on a Sunday morning. It had become a daily torment, one Karen was no longer willing to endure. She'd complained to the HOA. She'd sent emails to the neighborhood watch group. She'd even shouted over the fence at Michael once, demanding he do something about the noise. But nothing changed. Rex kept barking, and Michael kept ignoring her, as if she didn't matter. That was the final straw. Slamming her mug down on the counter, she stormed into the living room, her slippers flapping against the hardwood floor, and snatched her phone off the charger. Her fingers jabbed at the screen with the force of someone on the edge of a breakdown. 911, what's your emergency? Karen didn't hesitate. Yes, I need to report a dangerous animal on my street. It's out of control. Barking, snarling, threatening kids. Someone's going to get hurt if it's not dealt with. The operator's tone shifted. Do you believe the animal is currently posing a threat? Karen's lips curled into a sneer. She'd learned long ago that urgency got results. Absolutely. It's vicious. People are scared to go outside. That thing shouldn't be in a neighborhood like this. As she hung up, a smug sense of satisfaction washed over her. This time, she thought, they'll have no choice but to act. To Karen, Rex was everything wrong with the neighborhood bundled into one shaggy, barking package. It didn't matter that he was well-groomed or that Michael seemed to keep him in line most of the time. What mattered was the noise, and the fact that no one seemed to take her seriously. She'd grown up in a house where dogs were kept in kennels and only barked when something was actually wrong. To her, pets were supposed to be quiet, docile, and mostly invisible. Rex, on the other hand, was none of those things. He barked when someone walked down the street. He barked when squirrels ran across the fence. He barked, loudly, deeply, and incessantly. And Karen swore that he barked even more when he saw her step onto her porch, as if mocking her personally. She never once stopped to consider that Rex might be doing exactly what he was trained to do. Instead, she viewed him as a direct attack on her peace and quiet, a living, breathing middle finger for Michael, the aloof and muscular neighbor who always seemed too calm for her liking. His confidence irked her. His silence made her feel ignored. And his dog? His dog made her feel powerless. In her eyes, Rex was nothing but a disruptive animal, a mutt with no place in a respectable suburban community. She couldn't see the badge hidden in his harness or the training etched into every movement. All she saw was a barking problem with fur. 15 minutes later, the sound Karen had been waiting for cut through the air, the shrill, unmistakable wail of a police siren. She darted to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to see without being seen. Her heart pounded with anticipation as the squad car rolled slowly down the block and stopped, not in front of her house, but next door. Perfect, she thought. They're here for the dog. She expected drama. Maybe even backup. After all, she had reported a dangerous animal. She imagined the officer leaping from the car, hand on his weapon, eyes scanning the yard for signs of danger. Maybe they'd call animal control. Maybe even bring in a tranquilizer gun. But none of that happened. The officer who stepped out was calm, almost bored-looking. His uniform was neat, his stride unhurried. He walked up to Michael's front door and knocked, not pounded, just a few soft, measured taps, as if he were delivering a package and didn't want to wake a baby. Karen's brow furrowed. She leaned closer to the glass, her breath fogging the pain. "What is he doing?" she whispered to herself. "Why isn't he drawing his weapon? That mutt could be anywhere." The door didn't immediately open, and the officer didn't move to force it. He just stood there, one hand resting casually on his utility belt, the other hanging at his side. No backup, no tension, no urgency. Karen's stomach twisted with frustration. They weren't taking this seriously. Didn't they understand what she'd told the dispatcher? That this was a threat to public safety? She didn't realize it yet, but she was about to learn just how wrong her assumptions were. The front door finally creaked open, revealing Michael in a t-shirt and jeans, his broad frame taking up most of the doorway. He looked as calm and collected as ever, one brow raised slightly as he regarded the officer on his porch. Karen pressed her ear to the glass, straining to hear the exchange. The words were muffled, but she caught fragments: complaint, barking, misunderstanding. Then came the barking again, deep, resonant, and sudden. Karen recoiled instinctively, heart hammering in her chest. She fumbled for her phone again. "It's attacking," she gasped, breathless. But before she could even unlock the screen, the barking stopped. Outside, Rex had bounded into view, his fur bristling and ears alert. For a brief, terrifying moment, it looked like he was about to lunge. But then, he sat. Perfectly still. Perfectly disciplined. The officer barely flinched. He looked down at Rex and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Michael reached down and patted the dog on the head. Karen blinked. What the hell was going on? Michael's voice rang out more clearly now. "I'm sorry for the disturbance, officer, but I think there's been some confusion. This isn't just a pet. Rex is one of the department's own. He's a trained K-9 officer." The world tilted under Karen's feet. Karen's jaw dropped. From behind her curtain, she watched the dog she'd spent weeks vilifying transform in an instant from mutt to professional. Rex sat perfectly still beside Michael, posture rigid, ears perked. His eyes swept the yard methodically, alert and precise, like a soldier on patrol. The officer stepped back and regarded the dog with something that looked suspiciously like respect. Michael continued, his tone polite but firm. "Rex is part of the K-9 unit. He's been trained to detect narcotics, track fugitives, and subdue suspects. We've worked together for 5 years. He's not a danger to this neighborhood. In fact, he's the reason it's as safe as it is." Karen's head spun. She clutched the curtain tighter, her fingers trembling. "That can't be true," she whispered. "He's just a dog." But deep down she knew. She could see it now in the way Rex held himself. There was no wild energy, no unruly behavior. Every movement was calculated. Every bark had purpose. The dog she thought was barking at random was actually reacting to subtle cues in the environment. The aggression she'd reported was discipline misread through the lens of ignorance. And now she had made herself the fool. The officer nodded to Michael, offered a quiet apology, and returned to his vehicle. As the cruiser pulled away, Karen stood frozen in her living room, a storm of embarrassment, confusion, and humiliation boiling inside her. She had tried to get a dog arrested, and failed to realize he was already part of the force. Infuriated by the lack of action taken against Rex, Karen storms over to Michael's house, demanding answers. Her fists are clenched, her voice shrill with frustration as she unleashes weeks of pent-up rage. "What the hell is going on here?" she spits, glaring at both man and dog. Michael, calm and composed, tries to reason with her. He reaffirms Rex's status as a K-9 officer and stresses that the dog is not a threat. Rex, ever professional, remains by Michael's side, poised and watchful. Karen refuses to listen. Her frustration clouds her judgment, and she demands Rex be removed from the neighborhood. Michael, patience thinning, warns her to leave before things escalate. He reminds her that her actions could lead to legal consequences. But Karen, determined and blinded by her vendetta, isn't backing down. The confrontation ends with Karen vowing she won't rest until Rex is gone. Fueled by humiliation and anger, Karen heads home and begins to document every instance of Rex's barking. She becomes obsessive, setting timers, recording audio clips, and making meticulous notes. Her walls become lined with charts and timestamps. She creates a thick file of evidence, convinced that this new approach will be irrefutable. She files formal complaints with local animal control, calls the police repeatedly, and even writes letters to city officials. Her calls become more aggressive, her tone sharper with every conversation. Despite getting polite rejections and vague assurances, Karen persists. She's convinced that with enough paperwork and pressure, she can force the authorities to take Rex away. Her actions begin to draw attention from neighbors, many of whom now see her as the problem, not the dog. But Karen doesn't care. To her, this is a battle she must win. Michael, aware of Karen's ongoing campaign, stays vigilant. He installs new security cameras facing Karen's property, documenting her movements and any potential harassment. Rex, sensing tension, stays alert during their patrols and in the yard. Michael keeps his composure, continuing to fulfill his duties as a K9 handler, helping with cases and maintaining his dog's training. At the same time, he reports Karen's behavior to his precinct, ensuring there's a record of her actions. He also begins keeping a personal log, noting the times she glares from her windows, records their movements, or shouts over the fence. While he doesn't want conflict, he's ready for it. He knows that Rex's presence is lawful, and any escalation from Karen could backfire. He prepares for that possibility with quiet confidence. After a flood of complaints from Karen, the local authorities feel pressured to act. A pair of uniformed officers arrive at her door one afternoon to discuss the matter. Karen, smug and eager, invites them in and presents her evidence. She walks them through audio clips, printed logs, and time-stamped photographs. The officers listen politely but exchange skeptical glances. They explain that K9 units are exempt from typical noise ordinances when performing their duties. Karen's face falls, but she quickly pivots, accusing Michael of abuse of power and harassment. The officers make note of her claims but give no promises. Meanwhile, they also stop by Michael's home to speak with him and Rex. Michael welcomes them in, presents his own evidence, and explains the situation. Rex sits calmly, exuding control and training. The officers leave with a better understanding of the situation, and growing doubt about Karen's narrative. Expecting swift justice, Karen is stunned when she receives a formal letter dismissing her complaints. The letter states that no violations were found and that further false reports could result in legal repercussions. Her face flushes red as she rereads the message, disbelief turning to rage. She marches to the mayor's office uninvited, demanding to speak to someone in charge. But she's met with blank stares and security escorts. Word begins to spread around the neighborhood about her antics. Parents begin crossing the street to avoid her. Former friends stop waving. Children whisper and giggle behind her back. Alone and disgraced, Karen seethes in her home, curtains drawn, watching Michael and Rex from behind the blinds. She still refuses to admit defeat, but her confidence is shaken. The more she pushes, the more the world seems to push back. The seeds of her downfall have been planted. She doesn't know it yet, but the storm she's trying to create is about to consume her instead. Over the next few days, Karen's frustration crystallized into something far more dangerous: obsession. She woke up each morning with a singular focus: get rid of Rex. Sleep-deprived and emotionally frayed, she threw herself into her mission, convinced it was a noble crusade to restore peace to the neighborhood. She didn't see herself as a meddling neighbor anymore. No, she was a whistleblower, a truth-teller exposing the negligence of an overconfident cop and his so-called crime-fighting dog. Karen began documenting everything. She created a spreadsheet logging each bark she could hear through her windows. Time-stamped recordings filled her phone. She took videos, grainy and shaky from her second-story window, of Rex patrolling the yard, barking at squirrels, responding to Michael's commands, and even doing basic drills. Each video came with a long, impassioned monologue she filmed of herself, narrating what she claimed were violations of the local noise ordinance. She dug up city regulations on noise levels, animal control codes, and zoning restrictions. She even called in fake noise complaints pretending to be other neighbors. When that didn't have the impact she wanted, she printed flyers claiming Rex had bitten someone, slipping them into mailboxes under the cover of night. One afternoon, she parked down the street and followed Michael as he walked Rex. Using binoculars, she watched them train in the open lot near the park. She scribbled notes, highlighting anything she deemed aggressive behavior. One bark too loud, menacing, running drills off-leash, a danger to the community. When Karen wasn't watching Rex, she was on the phone. She called the police department, animal control, the local council, and even the media. Why is a dangerous dog being housed in a residential neighborhood? She would demand. Don't we care about the safety of our children? Despite her persistence, most officials were polite but unhelpful. Her complaints hit the same wall. Rex was not just a pet. He was a certified K9 officer with rights and protections under department policy. Still, Karen remained undeterred. She believed the system was rigged in Michael's favor. So she upped the ante. She created a blog called Justice for Suburbia, where she posted her videos and wild allegations against Michael and Rex. Her posts were passionate, full of caps lock and exclamation points, painting Rex as a menace and Michael as a derelict officer endangering innocent lives. But Karen wasn't careful. She posted addresses, encouraged others to file complaints, and even accused Michael of corruption. What she didn't realize was that her digital trail was being monitored by Rex. Driven by frustration and emboldened by her own echo chamber of online rants, Karen's behavior took a darker turn. She began prowling the neighborhood at night, dressed in black, creeping around Michael's fence to record any sounds Rex made. She staked out his property with a notepad, muttering to herself as she timed his barks with a stopwatch. One night, she snuck into the backyard and tossed a sausage laced with cayenne pepper over the fence, hoping Rex would eat it and react poorly. But the dog, trained to detect tampering, sniffed it suspiciously and refused to touch it. A motion-activated camera caught everything. The next morning, Michael reviewed the footage and sighed heavily. "She's crossing the line, Rex," he said, shaking his head. Rex gave a low, warning growl. Karen, oblivious to the growing legal trap around her, kept escalating. She followed Michael to the police station, attempting to film him in the parking lot. She called a local news station pretending to be a concerned neighbor, pitching a story about a rogue cop housing a violent animal. When the reporter asked for proof, she sent a compilation of her videos, heavily edited, of course, and devoid of context. Then came the incident that changed everything. One afternoon, Michael returned home to find his backyard gate wide open. Rex was in his usual position on the porch, alert but unharmed. The surveillance footage showed Karen, dressed in a hoodie and sunglasses, attempting to lure Rex out with a piece of meat. That night, Michael filed a formal complaint. And this time it stuck. A restraining order was placed against Karen, barring her from approaching Michael or Rex within 100 feet. But rather than backing off, Karen saw it as a declaration of war. With the restraining order in place, Michael and the department realized they needed to take Karen's actions seriously. Not just as harassment, but as a potential threat to a law enforcement officer. A task force was quietly formed, and Michael's superiors authorized him to gather evidence. Rex's K9 camera, a small chest-mounted unit used during operations, was activated anytime Karen approached the perimeter. Michael upgraded his home security with infrared motion sensors and microphones. Every phone call Karen made to city offices was documented. Her blog posts, threats, and social media accusations were archived. Meanwhile, Michael went about his life calmly and professionally. He gave no indication to Karen that he was watching her every move. He waved when she glared at him from her porch. He smiled when she posted more flyers. But inside, he was building a case that would bury her. His co-workers called it Operation Backfire. The local police chief paid Karen a visit, warning her that she was skating dangerously close to criminal charges. Karen scoffed and accused them of intimidating a whistleblower. She posted the encounter online, painting herself as a victim of government overreach. Michael knew it was only a matter of time. Karen's final act of defiance was her most reckless yet. She planted a Bluetooth speaker in a bush near Michael's house and programmed it to play dog barks in the middle of the night. Her goal was simple: create a false disturbance, record the neighborhood reaction, and pin it on Rex. That night, the barking started at 2:15 a.m. Loud, repetitive, and deliberately aggravating. Michael, already suspicious, checked the security feed. Rex was asleep inside the house. The sound was coming from outside. They turned the evidence over to the task force. Early the next morning, a warrant was issued for Karen's arrest for falsifying evidence, violating a restraining order, and stalking a law enforcement officer. When the officers came to arrest Karen, Rex was with them, gear on, badge glinting in the sun, eyes locked on the front door. Karen, bleary-eyed and in a bathrobe, flung the door open when she heard the knocking, expecting another warning or scolding. Instead, she was met with a squad of uniformed officers, and Rex. "You're under arrest for multiple violations, including obstruction of justice and harassment of a police officer," the lead officer said. "You can't be serious," Karen gasped, backing away. Rex stepped forward. Controlled. Intimidating. Michael spoke for the first time. "You wanted to see what real justice looks like, Karen. Congratulations. Now you know." Karen shrieked and lunged to slam the door shut, but Rex was faster. He launched forward with military precision, using his body to force the door open and safely pin Karen in place. She yelped, arms flailing as the cuffs were slapped on. The entire neighborhood watched from their porches as Karen was led out, barefoot, ranting about conspiracies and cover-ups. Rex stood beside Michael, composed and regal. His job was done, for now. And in the quiet that followed, the neighborhood exhaled. Justice, it seemed, had finally barked back.